In this game, Bobby Fischer crushed his Grandmaster opponent, Bent Larsen, in only 19 moves. Now, Bent Larsen is a very good player. He is a 6-time Danish champion, and he was a candidate for the World Chess Championship on 4 occasions. 65, 68, 71, and 77, I think. So, yeah, his opponent was very good. So, Bobby with white pieces opens up with e4, his signature move. He always plays e4. Knight f6, which is the Aliekin's defense. And normally for beginners, I don't recommend putting the knights like this. First, because they can be kicked around with pawn moves like e5. And then now this knight has got to jump around. c4 can be dangerous. And you're kind of about to see why this Aliekin's defense isn't the greatest opening. Obviously, Bent Larsen is a grandmaster, so he knows theory, and he's definitely going to play this well. But if you're lower rated, then I wouldn't suggest playing this knight f6 move after e4. So we have d4. This solidifies the center. This is an opening. This is like normal variation of the Aliekin's defense. We have d6. That's really the point of the Aliekin's defense. It's to get this knight in the middle, then pressure the center with a move like d6. And so Bobby reinforces the center with knight f3, a very simple move. d-e5, knight e5. And then we have a nice little variation here after knight d7. This proposes a trade, and obviously you shouldn't take, because if you take, bishop takes, this isn't great. This really isn't great. You get development, yes, but it's like now you helped black do exactly what he wants. You helped him get his bishop out, and now he's going to push this pawn sometime later, get this bishop out, and castle. But in the Aliekin's defense, you really want to be attacking as white. So what Bobby does is a very nice move, knight f7. Knight f7 is a top computer move. It's a really nice move because you're basically forced to take this knight. If you don't, then I win your queen, because believe it or not, this queen has nowhere to go. And not to mention, this is a nice little fork. So you're forced to take, which is what Larsen does, obviously. And then we have queen h5. If you move anywhere else than what happened in the game, then you're going to lose this knight. For example, the worst move, if you just go here, you just take this knight, and this is absolutely winning for white because this king's on f6 on the 8th move of the game, and you're just going to develop and castle, and you're just going to attack this king forever. So that's not good. And so and the worst variation is definitely king g8, because that's mate in 2. After queen takes d5, you notice this king is smothered in by its pieces, and this queen is a dagger, a nice little dagger, so this king can't escape on this diagonal. And then e6, and that's mate. So what happened in the game was the best move and the only move to hold this position. King e6. Now it looks like we lost our knight, and we can't win this knight. What's our compensation? Well, our compensation is a weak black king. So now that's why Fischer does queen g4. Now, after these following moves, I think what Fischer was trying to do was play for a draw. After king f7, queen h5, king e6, queen g4, we've repeated the same position 3 times, so it would be a draw by 3-fold repetition. And that's probably what you should have done. It's one of the quickest draws for sure. But Larsen is like, I want to play for a win. I'm not going to accept any draw, which probably he shouldn't have done with his king and literally near the middle of the board. He probably shouldn't have done that against Bobby Fischer himself. But he goes king d6. So we're not seeing a draw. What we're seeing is a fight by Larsen. He's going for the win. Now, this proved to be a bad decision, as you can tell by the title of this video. But then, now Bobby gets to play c4 and attack this knight. If this knight goes here, this is a fork. And if this knight goes here, a very nice variation is king c5. And if this king moves anywhere, it's going to be mate. For example, king d5, knight c3 is mate in 2 after queen e6 checkmate. King c6 is mate in 1, queen e6. So what Larsen, and obviously after c5, if you take after this, even though Larsen is up a pawn, this advantage isn't quite felt, and according to the computer, white is up 3 points. But this advantage isn't felt mainly because this king is literally in the middle of the board. So what you're going to do is bishop e3, so the idea, bishop e3, get this knight and then activate the rook on the d file, and you're absolutely crushing. It's just a king hunt. It's just a king hunt. You just attack the king. So you cannot move this knight. You can't move this knight here, and can't move this knight here. If you move this knight here, it gets trapped for sure. That's not a good move at all. So what Larsen does is a nice move, knight 7 to f6, because now this attacks the queen, so you can't take this knight. You take this knight, you lose your queen, obviously. So instead, and not to mention this also reveals an attack on this queen, so you can't just go here. So what Bobby does is gives a check, an in-between move, queen g3 check, because checks are the most forcing move in chess, and now after this king moves, you're probably going to take this knight. So king e6, now we take the knight with check. Queen recaptures, and knight c3 attacking this queen. Now what Bobby's trying to do is attack this queen, so he doesn't care if he gives up this d4 pawn, because now he's going to go bishop e3, attacking the queen once again. We have queen b4, and as I mentioned before, he wants to attack the queen, even if it means he loses a pawn. So a3 and gives up the b2 pawn. Now this doesn't look great for white, because Larsen is up 2 pawns, and even though this king's in the middle, this knight's being attacked, which will come with check. So if you defend this knight, you'll lose a lot of tempo, and a black can come back in the game. So you don't really want to defend this knight. What you want to do is play forcing moves, which is what Fischer does in the game with bishop c4 check. Check, and now the king moves to d7, rook d1, another check, king e8, and now after knight b5, the final blow, because Larsen resigned, because knight c7 is simply a checkmate in 1. So for example, if you attack this knight, knight c7 is checkmate. This bishop covers this square, and this rook covers the d file. So why did he resign though? Because it's definitely preventable after bishop d7. Well, bishop d7 is a top computer move, and there's a nice variation here, because you're going to lose material or you're going to lose the game. There's knight c7, king d8, knight e6. If you go to c8, queen c7 is checkmate 1. So king e8, then queen c7. And queen c3 check, bishop blocks attacking the queen, queen moves, and then we have the brilliant queen d8 check. If you take the queen, knight c7 is a smothered checkmate, because this bishop also covers this f7 square. So after queen d8, king f7, we have knight g5, king g6, bishop f7, king f5, and it's basically mate here. After g4, nice attraction tactic, it's basically checkmate. So Bent Larsen resigned on move 19 against Bobby Fischer. Absolutely a brilliant game by Fischer, sacrificing knight on f7, and that's only on the 6th move of the game. And after a deadly attack on the king, Bent Larsen fights for a win, but eventually Fischer, after some forcing moves, eventually clutches the win after knight b5.